What does it mean to you to take up space? And what would you say to me if I said that you didn't have to apologize for it? A friend told me once, in the middle of dance rehearsal, that I didn't have to make myself small to accommodate others. I wasn't even aware that I was doing this, and it took a 6'1", blue-eyed Englishman to notice it and bring it to my attention. Hey, Josh Taylor. Thanks for telling me. It launched a personal journey of unlearning a lot of bad habits and untruths. I didn't realize I had internalized the idea that I needed to validate my existence, or that I had to deserve to be in certain rooms with certain people. This podcast is actually the product of that unlearning, and it's sort of my declaration that I deserve to take up space just as much as the next guy. But in the process of talking to my friends and in making this episode, I realized something else. Something that was a lot more important than feeling entitled to your own space. I'll tell you what it is before the show ends. In the meantime, let me tell you right now, dear friend, that you do deserve to be here. That you don't have to constantly explain yourself. I mean, we all have our moments of brilliance and potential for greatness, sure. However, you could also just be totally normal and regular and ordinary. You could be just okay. And guess what? That's okay. Thanks so much for joining me again today. I'm Chris Flojo, and today we explore what it means to take up space and to not feel guilty about taking up that space. Maybe it's cultural, maybe it's personal, but we have been taught to inconvenience others as little as possible, even if it means invalidating our own needs. Even the thing Filipinos are known for, hospitality, it often means we sacrifice much of our own comfort or resources just to accommodate someone else. And say when you're stirring up the pot or causing a fuss or having a fit, no matter how valid, sometimes you're made to feel like you're being OA, madrama, or KSP. Why do we do this? And what has this done to our psyche? Did we inadvertently teach each other to take up as little space as possible? Now, these questions are actually the reason why it took me so long to edit this episode. There are just so many facets to this issue and so many things I want to talk about. But for starters, we're going to keep it simple, and maybe we'll explore more of these questions in future episodes. So what does it mean to take up space? I talked first to my friend, Aussy Aportadera, about some of her experiences with a toxic relationship that shaped her answers to this question.
My name is Aussy Aportadera. I'm 31 years old and I live in La Union with my daughter, Alana. I'm a yin yoga and meditation teacher here. I'm also a writer. I've been a writer for 13, 15 years. I moved to La Union with my daughter and my former partner, basically for my daughter's quality of life and her quality of education. Me and my ex had also been dealing with some mental health issues in terms of just anxiety, in terms of just pressure and depression. So moving to the beach really just gave us space to care for ourselves as well. Mm-hmm. And it was supposed to be an opportunity for us to care for each other even better. But long story short, being away from family, being away from those pressures as well, that kind of kept us intact, kind of unraveled and showed that how toxic our relationship was, how toxic of a partner he was.
So it was a toxic, abusive relationship. What was the point where you realized that that's what it was? Because usually abusers are pretty good at making it seem like it's totally normal, diba? How did you recognize that, and what pushed you to step outside of that relationship and finally move forward?
There was a really, really terrible incident, a physical incident where I had to call for help from my neighbors. And, it was so bad that I had to say saklolo, not help. Can you imagine? Because help, parang what's it called? Away ng mag-asawa. And they would not, parang we're both from Manila pa. And then our local neighbors could hear it. Us arguing, for example, in English. They just didn't want to get involved when I was screaming for help. They were hearing the glasses being broken or me yelling. And it wasn't until I sucked Lolo that they were just like, something's happening. That first incident, I went straight to Baguio. My brother lives in Baguio, 2 hours away from La Union. It's like just going from Makati to QC. I was in shock. I barely had any clothes with me then. Went to my brother to unpack what happened. For him, it was really like, this is grave. This is serious. I knew it was bad. I think something in the back of my mind knew it was bad. That's why I went to a safe place. But even then, I was kind of apologizing to my brother. I was defending my ex, and I told him, I want to work it out. I think he was just having a bad day. I think it was just a bad panic attack, anxiety attack that caused him to do this to me, because I don't think he even realized what he did. So I was really defending my ex at the time. My brother, of course, and his wife opened up their home to me and my daughter to help me figure that part out. And even when I wasn't making the correct decision, just made sure that I wasn't doing it alone. So I think that was so important. And that was like part of a long period of just accepting the reality that I was in an abusive relationship. Because at that same incident, I called up one of my best friends also. She's a lawyer, and I asked for her advice, legal advice. I kept it at, hey, let's keep this at a client-lawyer privilege. Please don't tell our barkada. I just want to know what are my options? What am I supposed to be doing? Of course, she was shocked. She was like, that's definitely not okay. She was being nice about not calling me out for defending him. There again, she was just kind of holding space for me. And yeah, so basically I didn't take her advice. I went on to reconcile with my ex, and we went back to La Union maybe like a week later, and things were fine and dandy. Went to couples therapy once, and parang after that felt na parang, oh, we are recovering, we are helping ourselves, blah, blah, blah.
As you may have guessed, things didn't stay good for long. Aussy had relinquished control to someone who couldn't be trusted with it, and things simply got worse. He would drag her across the room by her wrists, slam her head against the wall, scream at her face until he was blue. And Aussy had lived in this reality for so long that she thought this was normal. She had normalized violence. When she tried to explain her situation to her friends, she tried to downplay it. But having to say it out loud and hearing her friends say, that is not okay, it made her realize that she was inhabiting an unsafe space that she didn't need to stay in. And this support, this love she found in her group, made it possible for her to finally leave.
The final incident of him trying to bring down a ceiling fan in between the both of us while I'm standing there, of that happening, kind of like put on a switch in my brain and said, okay, this is it. This is, I'm not going beyond this. I know I could get really, really hurt. I walked out of the house, went straight to the police.
Yeah.
And then while the police were doing that, called my brother. This is happening again. I don't want to bother you and, crash at your place again. Maybe I'll go to Manila. And my brother was just like, we have room here for you. So that's another thing, like just physical holding space for me. That's what my brother did.
What did the police do about your ex?
Oh my gosh.
Did they take him away from the situation? After that, were you guys...
Absolutely not.
Oh, no.
My gosh. I think that's another thing that I had to deal with, because, the authorities, they won't make you feel like you should be helping yourself in this situation. I had support. That's why I was able to push through with it. But if it's so hard, because if anybody were to just follow what the protocol is for getting justice or getting help, I don't think our police are equipped yet for this. Even if I went to like the women's desk and everything, they asked me if hindi po ba pwedeng pag-usapan niyo na lang?
Oh boy. Matagal na po namin pinapag-usapan to. Yun po yung problema.
Exactly. Or, so I asked the police to go check on my ex, and because he was threatening to kill himself. And then they came back and they were like so sympathetic to him. Ma'am, umiyak naman po siya. Mukha naman siyang upstanding citizen. Nag-aaway lang sila. No! Thanks, guys. How terrible, right?
So nothing was done on their end legally, and you had to take the steps yourself.
Absolutely. And well, we come from a family of lawyers. So they were just saying, nope, this is what your right is. My other kuyas pulled out the Aussy, the Violence Against Women and Children Act. You know, there's very long primer about it. But, you know, they read it, told me what to do, go to the police, get your police blotter, and then head up to Baguio. We'll talk again there. I was so afraid to call on anybody from here, which I regret. I should have. I was so afraid that,
why?
They're also friends with him. What if they don't? I was afraid to see who they believed or... And at the very start, I also felt like it was my fault that he had that outburst. And it was your sister who later I would see, like months later after the incident, after I had already left my ex, she was saying, Aussy, why does it seem like you're still so apologetic? Why does it sound like you are still sorry that you brought this upon yourself? And that also made me realize, oh my gosh, there's so much programming about this abuse that makes me feel like even months after I've left my ex, it's still there, like in the way I'm telling my story. I have a daughter, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to file a case because she did not see the incident. She's seen my ex yell at me or get violent, not right there in front of her. But when I told her before we went up to Baguio, I grabbed her from school and I said, hey, we got to get going. I said, and I have to break up with the name of X. And then she said, why? And I was like, because he hurt me while we were in the middle of a fight. And she said, oh, but he makes me palo and to teach me a lesson. Maybe he's just teaching you a lesson. And that's why I was like, no, I gotta show her this is not normal.
You mentioned when it first happened and you called your brother and you said this sentence that a lot of people say when they don't need to say it is, I don't want to bother you. It's ingrained now, that we shouldn't inconvenience other people just for our sake, especially as women, right? And then when you said that, I don't want to bother you, you were already being abused. What would it have taken, diba, for you to say, I am so gonna bother you right now?
Like, I need your help, right?
Right. So it's even like a bigger thing. It's a social responsibility. We should be teaching our girls, take up all the space you want, bother everyone.
Bother everyone. Taking up space means you shouldn't be afraid to ask for help when you need it, to feel how you feel, or to want better things for you and for the people you love. But I also told you earlier that it means one other thing, and I promise we're getting to that. I talked with my friend Gino Nacianceno. We're old friends. He's an all-around good guy, and for the most part, he's totally normal. I wanted to talk to him about how different it might be to exist as a man in this world. And I wanted to talk specifically about fear. Women in general have more actions that are dictated by fear. Things we consider that men never even have to think twice about, like, where can I park so I don't get stabbed to death on my way to the car? Or when can I commute so the cars aren't so full and I won't be groped by some person? Or, just like in Aussy's case, how can I leave this man who supposedly loves me so that he doesn't hurt me in retaliation?
What does it mean to you when I say, how do you take up space? Do you have any idea? What is that for Gino Nacianceno?
I mean, we messaged about this beforehand, right? Like, parang, when you say that, like,
I never thought about it. I don't know if there is a conscious effort on my end. From my context, it's about making yourself felt, the value you add to whatever context you're in, whether it's a family situation or a work situation or a friend's like environment. Although I must admit, it's never a conscious effort on my end. Like I just am,
Right.
and hopefully that's enough.
What are you afraid of? Like things that are on the outside, environmental. Are you ever afraid walking around alone at night? Is this a kind of fear that you have? Getting into fights, bar brawls? I don't know. What scares you about your environment?
Parang physically, not so much. I mean, of course, the thought of getting into a fight, like, like is scary. But I don't think I'll ever put myself in a situation where I would get into one. Right? Like, I could easily walk away. So it's not a big fear. Like, I guess now, like, there's so much more anxiety now, though, right? Like with what's happening all over, or all around us, the fears have become more macro. It's the fear of the economy, the fear that like job security, the fear that my family will have a difficult or challenging time in the next few years. I think those are the fears that are more real to me now than ever before.
Usually when men have all of these strong opinions, it's okay for them to have these opinions, and there's no fear of being labeled as a bitch or too bossy, ambisyosa masyado.
Right, right.
And then I'm asking about the environmental stuff because sometimes when a woman sometimes is afraid to be impolite because our fears are, oh, he could stab me to death and like totally overwhelm me with his physical presence. You know what I mean? Like the fears that we are facing just dictate so much of how we operate in the space that we take up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if any of that at all affects you as you live your life, as you walk through your day, as you make your decisions at work. Like what weighs heavily on you that it affects, just your psyche, the decisions you make, the paths
Right.
you take.
I think it's, for me personally. I don't know if it's a man thing or a Gino
Right.
thing. It's probably more of a Gino thing. The things that weigh on me more are like more of the long term stuff. Like parang, am I on the right path? It's the fear that will I be able to provide the life for my family that I want to be able to provide in the future. So a lot of those long term issues, I think those are the things that weigh a lot on me currently. Kasi parang we're on the cusp, right? We're transitioners from young adulthood to starting our own families, taking a root na talaga. Like there's a sense that what we're doing in the next few years will kind of shape already how we end it, right?
Right.
So those are the things that weigh heavily on me. But if it was just up to me, I'd like quit my corporate job, like
And do what?
tomorrow, and like pursue something that will spark a joy in my heart every time I wake up in the morning. And it's not necessarily a desk corporate job. That could be like in government or like putting up a beachside cafe or something, right?
What's stopping you from doing that exactly? I mean, practicality. I understand.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
It's that's exactly what it is, right? It's the uncertainty of if I make the jump, will I still be able to maintain this lifestyle or build the lifestyle that I want my family to have? I think if it's just me, it's easier because I could totally recalibrate my lifestyle because it's mine, right? Parang it just affects me. But what happens when I have a kid? I want to be able to give that person the best opportunities. Then it's not about me anymore, and it puts the pressure on what I'm doing now.
Was there ever a time that you kind of found yourself going a different way or things going absolutely wrong? And it's just like, this just isn't working out. But this is not where I imagined myself to be.
I always found myself in that situation. I had to change career tracks so many times, but it never felt like it was wrong. So I was in production like college and late college. And then I shifted to trying to put up my own startup, which failed miserably. But that got me into my first corporate job, which made me meet people that got me into my agency job, which set me up for my current job now. So it never felt like I hit a dead end. There's a healthy amount of feeling unease of whether you're totally fit for what you're doing. If you don't, then it means you're not stretching yourself, right? It never made me feel that, whoops, I shouldn't be here.
You've never felt that. Was there ever a time in your life you're like,
Oh, you know what? Baka parang meron. When I remember when I took my masters.
yeah.
Yes,
Oh.
and I never finished that. And I was sitting through. I was like my third module out of 15, and then it was like every Saturday class, and I was sitting there thinking that's what I wanted to do, but then realizing not even halfway through it, like, man, this is not for me. So I stopped.
How interesting, because that's the one thing that everybody thought you were gonna do pa.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So that was the only time I think that I could recall now, at least, where I totally felt me sitting in this classroom right now is not for me. It was also always a Saturday class, and I was always hungover.
That may have contributed.
Yeah.
Did you always feel like you could, when you insert yourself in, or when you place yourself in whatever position you find yourself in, did you ever feel like you had to adjust or change anything about yourself to fit into any of these roles?
I think it kind of relates to what I told you earlier, right? Like any social situation, we bring with us a different mask, or we wear a different mask. So I always feel like I'm tweaking something, right? But it doesn't feel like I'm withholding a part of myself.
Right.
I'm just showing a different part of me, which I feel will be the most effective me in that moment or in that room.
I feel like in my mind, the visual is like you're there's a file cabinet in your brain. It's like,
exactly
this file's gonna come out now. This is what's useful.
The talkative one, the Bibo one, the contemplative but reassuring one. I don't know.
Wait, the Bibo one, does it ever go away?
Sometimes.
I don't think I've ever been in a situation where you were not Bibo yet.
You know what? As a growing up, I was super shy. It's one thing I remember consciously trying to change about me. I had to be a bit more engaging.
Did anyone tell you you needed to be more engaging?
No, it was an internal thing. Like, parang, why do I feel so like I have to hide behind my mom? I guess I was a kid pa then.
Wow, you're so self-aware naman though.
Yeah.
Self-aware naman. I'm curious to know, what was that voice? Who was that voice in your head? Was it your mom? Was she just like, you can do whatever you want to do? Where'd you think you got that?
It was probably, you know what? I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know where I got it. Like in my mind, it's my voice. I don't see any other person pushing me persona wise in my head.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure it's not just me. Right? Like, I mean, we are always a product of everyone around us. So I'm pretty sure like the confluence of events, of the people I'm with, pushed me towards that.
And there it is again. It's the people around us that really do help push us to be better. I mean, of course, sometimes they pull us down, and there are certain bad seeds, weeds that will grow too fast and choke you out. But the good thing is, we can choose who to share our space with. We can choose people that we can grow with, and hopefully you make each other better. And one of those people in Gino's life was his dad.
I grew up kasi with him in public service all my life, most of my life. And I guess whenever he would bring work home and he would talk about his work, it was always in the context of service. He was pretty high up in MMDA, which is the department he served in most of his life. Like, yung mga kwento niya from work was always about how he was able to help. And it's always a time where I would see yung brightness sa mata niya. Pag may nakuwento siyang, may natulungan siyang tao. And it's not, he never said it as a way na nagmamayabang siya. Parang I genuinely felt that's the joy he was getting out of the work that he was doing. And it made all the difficult times that come with government work worth it for him. And all the times that I didn't see him worth it for me, because I knew that he was doing something super meaningful to him and to everybody around him. Yung tulong na bibigay niya sa mga tao, it was always ordinary people. I mean, it might sound parang inaangat ko yung bangko ng dad ko so much, but parang it's something so we wish we hear from our officials now more often now, right? Parang like public service is public trust. Putting yourself in that position means that you are serving someone else. It doesn't mean that you get to go around the road with like your wang-wangs, or that you get privileged treatment. It was never about that. It was about making sure that you get to elevate the people amongst us who need it the most. Knowing that no matter what walk of life you have, no matter what your background is, no matter what your position is in this organization or in this society, you deserve 100% equally as the next person to you, or the person who you think is better than you.
And so this is what I was talking about earlier. While it's important to remember that you are valid, it's just as important to remember that the person sitting beside you is too. They're also going through things. They're walking through life trying to figure out where they belong, just like you are. So if you're going to take up space like a tree. Be big and grand and tall and strong against the buffeting winds. So big and grand and tall, in fact, that you provide safety for anyone who rests in your shade. I once thought that applause and accolades were the only way to know that you've done well in life. That you're worthy of the space you take up because you've moved the needle in some obvious way. But the older I get, the more I appreciate the slow burn, a quiet entrance, an organic attachment to things and people, nothing forced or manipulated into being. I find that I want to just trickle into consciousness, weaving naturally and comfortably into lives and stories. Because in reality, we all make ripples that affect others in ways big and small, bad or good, whether we know it or not. Your existence matters. This has been You're Just Okay and That's Okay, and I want to thank you for staying and listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We've got more stuff coming your way, and I also want to say thank you to everybody who has sent messages through the Instagram. If you haven't added it yet, please go on to You're Just Okay podcast, and that's where you can see updates and just all sorts of other fun stuff. And it's also where you can send me messages. I would love that. Thank you again. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you again next time. Bye!